am WWF's longest reigning light heavyweight champion, Gilbert, and you are now somewhere in the ring.
The following podcast is scheduled for one recording with no time limit. Making their way down to somewhere in the ring, Andrew Sanford and Ryan Sprague.
We have a very special guest with us today. Our first returning guest?
Ooh. I believe so.
Big return.
Writer, comic book creator, Joey Esposito. Joey!
Thanks for having me back. I am pumped to be here.
We are pumped to have you here, especially
Absolutely.
You filled in at the last minute. Our friend Paul Andrew Kimball was going to be our other guest, but he had to back out at the last minute. And I texted Joey and look, we reach out to people who do this podcast all the time. Some have, some haven't, some respond, some don't respond. Joey responded to me quicker than anyone ever has in regards to...
Dude, any chance I have to talk about wrestling, I'm on board. I have all of my hobbies have become work, and this is one of my last things that I have. So I'm like, hell yeah.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah. So before we get into, we are here. So first of all, this is Somewhere in the Ring. I'm Andrew Sanford with my co-host Ryan Sprague. This is a podcast where we talk about wrestling, sometimes mostly WWE stuff, but sometimes some other stuff. We have an episode next week where we'll be talking some ECW, which is very exciting.
Nice.
Yes. Everybody get ready by watching One Night Stand 2006. That's all I'm going to say about that right now.
Classic.
Hint.
So good. But today we're here to talk about Money in the Bank, the most recent PLE that just happened. We'll probably get a little bit into what happened on Raw last night, even though it seemed like kind of a refresher or a restart, if you will. But yeah, we had a pretty big PLE this last weekend. And Joey, we were here last time you were here. We were talking about your new comic book called The Pedestrian, which comes out next month, which is very exciting.
That's true.
And we didn't get as much time, I don't think, to talk about your history of wrestling. And so I think just so our audience, because they hear me and Ryan talk about what we like about wrestling so much, what got you into wrestling when you were little, and who was your favorite wrestler when you were growing up?
Shawn Michaels was my fave. Still, I would say probably is, although that's I think Stone Cold is certainly up there, especially in his, I don't know if you follow him on any social media these days, but he mostly just posts about his cats, and which is like something that I can relate to, and I have never... even his anti-authority stuff, I think I relate to him more as a cat owner. So, but yeah, growing up, it was my next door neighbor was super into WWF at the time. And this was the early 90s of, Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan and all that stuff. But it wasn't really until the mid 90s that I sort of dove in and got hooked in, of course, by the Attitude Era, but even before that with the WrestleMania 12 Iron Man match. And
sure,
just sort of that was my gateway drug, so to speak. And then, like I talked about last time, it was at that point where I just went back and started renting all the old WrestleManias and old pay-per-views and stuff from the video store, and just kind of really diving deep into the WWF lore. And then, as I think a lot of wrestling fans, as you grow and evolve and change, you sort of dip in and out, especially as the people who you grew up with are on their way out. Shawn Michaels, quote unquote, retired in 1998 after WrestleMania 15. And then when he came back in 2002, it was like, oh my God. And
had arguably, we've talked about this before, a better run than his first run with the company.
I agree.
I think
agreed.
That's probably the best comeback from injury story in pro wrestling ever.
For sure.
As far as what it resulted in, even now.
And I think that you can see, knowing what we know about his personal issues at the time in the 90s versus when he came back, it's like you can see how much healthier he is on the other side of that thing. And it shows in his matches, like that Survivor Series match the Elimination Chamber match where he won. His street fight with Triple H around that time was so good. And then even a few years later, that match with Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 21, I think.
Yes.
So man.
Good. Oh, Ryan, we might have to enlist Joey for a special match commentary. I remember watching that match live. That is one of the best WrestleMania matches I've ever watched live.
Yes.
That's so good.
It cements if you're ever, because we watched Kurt Angle has just had some amazing WrestleMania matches. We watched a Kurt Angle Eddie Guerrero WrestleMania match that was phenomenal. That I think was probably the year before, because I think it was WrestleMania 20. I'm putting that in the book. We're gonna do that soon.
Good stuff. And I was also lucky enough to be at Mania 25 and 26, which were the two Michaels Undertaker matches that are also incredible.
I knew that. Yeah.
What is that, Joey? What is that like? Like we've been to Raw, SmackDown, house shows, but like WrestleMania.
I've been to a Hell in a Cell, no big deal, whatever.
Oh my god, man, that's amazing.
As a guest of, I assume, the same person that Joey was a guest of for the two WrestleManias.
It's all coming together. WrestleMania, what is that like? Because again, like this is like this. Everyone says it's the Super Bowl of wrestling, but it even goes beyond that. Like people who never watch wrestling. We had a YouTuber on a month ago who watched WrestleMania the 40, and it was the first event she ever watched, and now she's all in, man. Like she's obsessed. So what was that like being at an event that big that just crosses over into like pop culture?
It really reminds me of going to San Diego Comic-Con in a lot of ways, like whatever city they're in. So I think 25 was in Houston and 26 was in Phoenix. And they just kind of take over the town. Like you are walking down the street and you see wrestling t-shirts and there's events all over because all the smaller promotions come and do events for that week/weekend, for all the indie shows and stuff. There's signings everywhere. So it's really kind of like a festival vibe almost. And then the event itself, I mean, I've never been to like a football game or let alone the Super Bowl, but I have to imagine it's a similar experience of just like masses and masses of people all representing whoever they're choosing to represent. And everyone is there because they're excited and they want to be there. And, I think like with any wrestling event, depending on your seats and all that stuff, it's a different experience of watching a live match without the sort of external commentary and graphics and all that stuff. But I think that energy at a WrestleMania is something that's next level, especially when you're in like a football stadium with just a gazillion people. It's insane.
Right.
But something like those HBK Undertaker matches was just like, I've never seen a crowd more just like enraptured with a performance. It's incredible.
I also love how the indie shows will take over the towns that WrestleMania is in, kind of like the little monsters that come off of the Cloverfield monster. Yeah. Like they get to eat because they are in proximity to this giant unstoppable force. And then if that Cloverfield monster dies, those little monsters are going to eat it alive, or eat its corpse. So,
well, I mean, take for example, when I went to SmackDown recently, I spent half my time there handing out business cards for somewhere in the ring. Like you have to take advantage of these situations.
We're more like barnacles. We're like barnacles.
That's true.
Ourselves to the hull of a boat. So that's
the only ring you're going to see me in is this podcast for now. Oh man, should we get to Money in the Bank, guys?
Dude, let's do it.
Toronto. They're finally back in Toronto for a PLE. We even had Trish Stratus show up to kind of be like our host, I guess you could call it.
Kind of.
So that was cool.
She was there.
She said, I mean, look, I love Trish. It's always great to see her, but I wish that they gave her more to do than to introduce someone and just like kind of be interrupted. Although, we'll get to that, but
yeah.
Where would we like to start, Andrew? I know you said you had to watch the first match later. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I did. Yes, yeah, but we can still start there. Like, we can start. I
Let's do
think it
chronology.
started with the
Yeah.
men's Money in the Bank. I think we can start with the men's Money in the Bank. Something I would like you two to have in your mind, though, for the end of this.
Okay.
Just because I do think this was not a transitional pay-per-view, but I do think this was one that was meant to push a couple things forward in a way that like Backlash didn't necessarily.
Mhm.
So my question for you guys to think about that we can discuss at the end is, who do you think came out of this pay-per-view or PLE the best, like the best setup to succeed, best setup going forward? If you have like a runner-up, that's fine because there were a lot of people that night. But just think about, out of everything that happened to the night, who has like the best trajectory. And I will add one caveat to that. You can't say John Cena because I think that's too easy an answer.
That's fair. Nope, I already know who I'm going to say.
Even we will all talk about that whole thing, but he was set up in a way that no pro wrestler has ever been set up before, ever, I would argue. So we won't say that, but yeah, just something to keep in your mind for the end.
Gotcha.
Something I'm interested in.
Okay, I also just want to say that also I also watched the whole event the next day, and one of the problems that I have is that I'm almost never ready to watch like as it's starting, and so I'll try to catch it and do it soon enough where I can rewind, because there's only like a certain amount of buffer that they allow. Otherwise, you have to wait for the replay, and the replay doesn't come till the next day.
So
and
annoying.
Stupidly, I turned it on at like 11, and it was like the press conference, and they had a graphic with all the results on the screen. And I was like,
no,
come on.
The pressers are awful, man.
So that sucks.
Joey, same with me, man. Like I had to watch it the next morning, but Twitter ruined everything for me, which is my fault for going on social media. Like as a wrestling podcast, of course, my entire feed is going to be the results. So that was on me. But I also blame who over at what. So
I mean, it didn't take away any enjoyment because really, classically, it's not about the ending; it's about the journey, and I still have a good time. But I wanted to mention that colored my entire view of the show.
Totally fair.
Yeah, sure.
Well,
it's funny you say that because I knew obviously when I finally did get to sit down who had won this first match, and I was okay with it until after the event. And we'll get into that in a little bit.
Interesting. Okay.
Yep.
Let's get to the first match then. Talking about that journey, men's ladder match for Money in the Bank. LA Knight, Jey Uso, Drew McIntyre, Andrade, Carmelo Hayes, and Chad Gable. Have at it, Andrew. Start this match for us, man.
One thing I will say right off of the bat, great choices, all 6 of them.
Absolutely.
Great choices. All of them could use a little bump. I think Drew McIntyre, you could argue, doesn't or didn't need like the bump, especially with the way that things eventually played out. But I do think it was just a great choice across the board. Everybody got a nice little highlight. I think it was one of the first times since he's been back that they have used Andrade correctly. Like I just don't understand.
That Spanish fly or Spanish sunset flip or whatever he did off the ladder. It was some insane. There was multiple times throughout, not only this match, but all of the matches, like the other matches where I was like, oh, they're dead. Like that person is deceased.
Dude, I mean, we'll get into some specifics, but this event, this PLE, like probably had more botches than like the last 4 PLEs have had together. However, they came off so real and that like it, you could almost look past it. But that's all I heard people talking about after. Like, man, there were so many botch fest. And I'm like, what do you expect when you have 10 ladders, 6 guys, 6 women? Like things are gonna go wrong. That's the point.
Right.
I also would like to urge those people to get on top of a ladder and see how they feel while they're up there, and then tell me about the botching. You know what I mean?
I get scared trying to change my light bulb, dude.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I'm sorry that sunset flip from one ladder to another looked a little janky. Yeah, maybe because it's terrifying.
I loved the work into it too, because didn't Andrade, he like got hit and it made him roll forward to give somebody. I love that kind of like what am I not MC Escher? What's the like how Pee Wee's house is set up?
Like
What's
a Rube
that called?
Goldberg device?
A Rube Goldberg machine. Thank you. Yeah. Like that. I love one thing starts another thing that starts another thing. There should be more of that in wrestling. But yeah, I thought it was a really good match. I'm excited to see. I like everybody in here. I can see being in the world title picture in the next couple of years. Every single last one of them.
Yep.
What were you about to say, Joey? Sorry.
I was just going to echo what you just said, in that I think this was a great showcase for all of these performers. I think that it, as we find out, it's clearly really about the story for Drew in this match and how things play out, which I was fine with and actually enjoyed a great deal. But I think the more important thing is that it especially like Jey Uso, who just feels like he's on the precipice, like he's
Almost
so
there.
over.
Yep.
It's close.
And I think giving him that spotlight, and even Carmelo and Andrade, just putting them in front of the eyeballs who need to see what they're really capable of. I think that was a really strong showing. And Chad Gable, who's been crushing it, just like in general, taking that gnarly spill from hanging on the briefcase.
Yeah.
That made me like, ooh.
Dude.
Yeah.
And what I like too is that it's almost everybody in this match you don't get to see do this kind of stuff that often.
Right.
Whereas usually sometimes it's fun to look, poor Kofi, who I love, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, has kind of had diminishing returns as far as doing these matches the last couple of years. Whereas he used to, like, that would be who you would watch the match for, arguably. But I kind of like that there was no Kofi, there was no Jeff Hardy, there was no like person who like no Rey Mysterio, no like, oh, these high flyers that are going to do something crazy. Everybody here got a chance to be that person on their own in a certain way, which I thought was really fun. And then kind of like work against type. And then you get like, because we know they do this kind of stuff at house shows because you got to put on the best shows. So people will do more table or ladder matches or things like that at a house show, but to get to see these guys work within these confines was really fun and really special. Like, I think that across the board, something that struck me about this whole card was I was like, I wouldn't have expected any of these matches to be the matches for tonight.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it
also,
was pretty cool. Yeah.
To go off of what you're saying about kind of the sort of performers that they put in this match, I think they all got their moment to shine, but they did it in a way that made sense for their characters. And the one I keep coming back to is like, I think Drew, or I think it was Jay who was up on the top of the ladder, and Drew just like threw the ladder like a javelin, just like with his gigantic muscles. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. He didn't try to like rush up the ladder because he's fast, but he's not Jey Uso fast.
No.
So yeah, I'm just gonna launch this right at your face, and I love that.
I love
plant my giant tree trunk legs.
Yeah. Man, those things crazy. I'm imagining him throwing logs in his youth here in Scotland. Yeah, that's what he did. Well, and I want to point out too, like these briefcase ladder matches get so creative, and I think that's what I love most about it. We'll talk about the women's later on, where someone did one of the most creative, unique things I've seen done with one of these matches. But let's talk about the end of the match, like which will ultimately lead to another match later on the card. And I would love to get both their thoughts. It seemed like everyone was super pissed off when, let's just say it, Drew McIntyre ends up winning, and would use the briefcase that very night. We'll get to that. But a lot of people out there were saying like, oh my God, what a waste. Like, one of these other guys, we could have had a whole storyline for the rest of the year with the briefcase, this, that. Like, what a complete waste to give it to Drew McIntyre for this feud with Punk. And yeah, it seemed like, again, wrestling Twitter, I guess we'll call it that, was like super mad about it. What was your initial impression when Drew won and cashed in? And then what are you thinking now with the winner of this match?
So I didn't watch the match until afterwards, like I said.
Okay.
When I had heard news that he won, I was fine with it because someone on our Facebook group called what they were going to do with the match the day of the event.
Yes, they did.
And I remember seeing that and thinking, surely they wouldn't do that because that's too obvious. Like, that is the thing that they have just been doing with him. And I will get into it more when we get to the match later, but there was even a moment where I was just like, oh, they're still not going to do it. They're going to have one less swerve, and they didn't do that. So hearing that he had won the belt, I was okay with. I am in the group of people that did not care for how the rest of it played out.
Okay.
Oh man, I'm
Personally.
very excited to get to that because I completely disagree.
Me too, and I love that. Good.
Okay.
Excellent.
But in terms of Drew winning, I think it indicated to me. Here's the thing: I love that there's a men's and women's Money in the Bank match, but I don't think that you can have, and they don't usually do this. I don't think you can have two ongoing storylines where someone has a briefcase and is like maybe going to cash it in throughout like the coming months. So last time it was Damien Priest, and he had it for basically almost a year, I think.
Yeah, just about.
Yeah.
But knowing that Drew won this one, that indicated to me like, okay, they're going to do something related to the Drew and Punk line, the storyline, whether that's tonight or in a week or two. But that meant I was expecting the women's winner to be someone who could use that as like a story to propel forward. And as we'll see, that I think is what is going to happen.
Right.
So I don't know. I think like, even though this was kind of expected, for me, it didn't make it any less enjoyable or exciting.
Sure.
And Drew he's just killing it right now. And he's not someone who I ever thought about that much. Like, he's always just like, I was very impressed with his comeback after he left WWE and came back as just this jacked creature that just didn't look anything like the Drew that I remembered from 2009. But I think with this Punk feud and all of his social media stuff, he's just really won me over in a huge way. And that's not to say like his matches has always been fun. He's always been a great performer, but just something about the character has clicked for me. And so I'm enjoying seeing him really just hit a brick wall over and over and over again.
Sure.
It is pretty aggravating in a good way. Yeah. I'm of the mind that I forget who. I think it was Tommy Dreamer, maybe, who I heard recently talking about this.
Go on.
Yeah, right? Yeah, of all the people. Yep. Let me pull this out of the memory bank. Yeah. Well, he was saying with these Money in the Bank things, like when they first started doing it, it was kind of a crutch, like a story crutch that the writers would use throughout the year. Like, oh, we need to really shake things up. Let's do that Money in the Bank thing. What I enjoyed about this is that WWE seems to be so confident in all of their storylines moving forward that they clearly felt they didn't need this Money in the Bank cash in with the men, at least for another year, which I think that's pretty cool. So I was a little mad at first. I'm like, oh, Carmelo could have really used that. I would even like to see LA Knight get it, but at the end of the day, like, it is, as we're going to talk about, going to be used for another story moving forward, and I'm okay with that. Yeah. I do think we don't need it. We don't need a Money in the Bank cash in, because look, even with Damien Priest, they waited till like you guys said, a couple weeks before it was up, and I honestly feel like they just kind of forgot about it. I don't think that was planned.
They did some teases because he kept like almost cashing it. Remember, even the night the Raw we went to, I think was one of the nights where he almost cashed
that's
it.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
But
so it's go ahead, Jerry.
Sorry. I think also it's a thing where a lot of these guys in this match, LA Knight, Jey Uso, Chad Gable specifically, are so popular and over, and people already are invested in them. They don't need a briefcase. And the other two, Andrade and Carmelo, are great performers, but I don't think giving them a briefcase to like look at Austin Theory, for example, when that felt like they're giving him a briefcase because no one gives a shit about him. Sorry for cursing. No one cares about him really. So let's give him the briefcase and try to like boost his stock a little bit. But I think that was still in the previous regime. And I think the current regime understands that you can't really force people to care about someone just because the company is saying, hey, you should care about this person.
Right.
And that's not to say that I don't think people will feel that way about Andrade or Carmelo. I just mean that the other people in the match already have that. And I just feel like there was no benefit to giving another kind of, was he going to cash in story to any of those folks?
Sure.
Yeah.
The only thing I think, only reason I think I would have wanted it to go on, I think about somebody like LA Knight, who I think they could put a belt on, but they don't really have any kind of like organic way to get that story going. And I think that I think you could call it a crutch, you could call it a cheat. So I think it's fair to. I think what you guys are saying makes sense, but I do think there could have been some benefit. And the fact that they didn't shows me that there are several people in that match that I feel like they're still kind of spinning their wheels with, even though they shouldn't be. I think they are doing stuff with Chad Gable, but they don't know exactly what to do with him. Jimmy Uso or Jey Uso is right on the cusp, and yet I feel like they're just waiting to have him reunite with Roman Reigns and Jimmy. With Andrade, they gave him the Twitter title, who cares? Like
speed title, baby, the most prestigious title in WWE.
Yeah. He took it from Ricochet. And then Carmelo Hayes still a little too early.
Yeah,
I can see that. And then jeepers, who's the sixth person I'm thinking of? LA Knight is like, he's got his feud going on with Logan Paul, and they clearly want Logan Paul to have a big match in Cleveland.
Yeah.
So like, I feel like that Drew is like the most obvious answer. But yeah, I don't know. I think I was just a little underwhelmed with how everything ended up playing out, but I also why people weren't. If that
Sure. Makes sense. Okay, let's do the
great match
report. Let's do the Bleacher Report on this one, guys. Grade A through F. What would you give our first match of the night? Joey, let's start with you, man.
Okay, I just have to say, I feel like I'm just going to give everything an A because I'm looking at it like,
good. That's awesome.
Like, they risked their lives for my entertainment. A, who am I to judge?
Now I feel bad.
I think there's probably exceptions. And actually, that's not true. There is a B I would like to hand out, but I would give this one an A.
Okay,
yeah, that's fair. I'm gonna go B plus, solid B plus. But I think I was again affected after the fact that I had to watch this match the next day. But still very good. Still very good.
Yeah,
I and it didn't take down like my overall grade for the pay-per-view, which is higher. So,
okay. Yeah. All right, let's move to the Intercontinental Championship. Sami Zayn versus Braun Breaker. Joey.
Just remember, before we turn to our wonderful guest, I just want to say that there was a point early on when we started this podcast where Ryan was very much not a Braun Breaker fan, and I'm just going to straight up say it. Tell him how wrong he was. I'm
well aware. Trust me. When we get to our reviews, buddy, you're going to see how much I've turned around on that. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, maybe you can help me get there.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Ooh,
that was going to be my question.
Okay.
Like, going into this match, do you know anything about Braun Breaker? He's very new. He was in NXT. Yeah. They moved him up. Yeah. What is your experience with him?
I've followed Braun Breaker's trajectory. I hate having to say Braun Breaker because it's like a tongue twister.
It is a bad name. It's a bad name.
It's just he's very talented. Obviously, his family is very talented. And he's total beefcake, and I get it. And wrestling needs those characters, but it's just he's not offering anything that I haven't seen before.
Fair.
He's got incredible intensity. I like when he barks. It's such a macho dweeby thing to do.
Sure.
And he's clearly very impressive. Just character-wise, there's not a whole lot there.
Only on a wrestling podcast are you going to hear someone say, "I like when he barks."
Yeah. But Joey, I am right there with you. I think he needs a personality upgrade. And maybe he's just not capable of that. I don't think he's like a Goldberg where he's bad on the mic. Ooh, okay. But I think that not that he wants to be his dad, but there's something about like, even just give him a leather jacket or something like you know what I mean? Something a little, and I think part of that too is a little bit in how he is being booked. But Ryan, why do you disagree?
I will politely disagree because I do agree
it doesn't have to be polite
with elements of what you're okay, fine. I hate you. You're totally wrong. I hated this guy. I didn't like him in NXT. I was like, they could have brought up anyone else and I would have been happy from NXT. That being said, I thought they booked him terribly when he first got up to the main roster. But what I think we're seeing right now is he's finding his character, and he's actually, we bring up what's his name, the guy you hate, Andrew, Goldberg.
You're gonna have to be more specific.
Yeah, you're gonna have to be way more specific with wrestling.
I hate Goldberg.
Yeah. That intensity, the spears, the squashes, everything. That is what I first thought of with Breaker. What I'm seeing now is someone who knows they're being compared to Goldberg and is trying everything to stand out. And I do like they have like the Breaker cam now. Every time he runs around the ring and then spears someone, you're seeing it from above. I love that he has like his own camera angle now. They're giving him time on the mic, and I think he's actually really good on the mic. I listened to him do a personal interview recently, and I'm like, this guy is very smart. He knows what he's being painted as. He knows that his booking at the beginning was not the best, but that they have pivoted and they're giving him really good storyline. So yeah, I really, really thought he was going to win this match. I thought he was going to walk away the champion in this match.
I did too for a half second, and I kind of appreciate that they didn't have that happen because I do think that Sammy's a good champ. I don't think Braun Breaker needs it right just yet. I also think they could have him just skip the Intercontinental title, like, to be perfectly frank. But I like that we got to see. I feel like this match, he got to show off some more of that athleticism, some more of that, like, because the dude can move.
Yeah,
move like
26 miles per hour, as Michael Cole likes to remind us.
Every 10 seconds. He
is only, now don't get me wrong, everyone in this event gets outdone by one person in this event, and that person is not John Cena. We'll get into that a little bit later, but there's something about this kind of like new wave of these big dudes that can move and jump and like have a little bit more athleticism to them that aren't just I'm going to stand here and you're going to push me and it's not going to work and we're going to do that for 20 minutes. Like,
yeah.
I mean, look, I don't want to take anything away from his ability. He's like very good. It's the personality wise. I haven't gotten.
I'm right there. Yeah. No. Yeah. I'm right there with you. Because he's kind of a blank slate.
But it's also, it's cool because you know that he's going to intend in the next decade, he's it, right?
Yes.
Like, so it's you can feel like you're watching the next generation's big superstar kind of figure himself out and figure out the character. It's like almost like early days of Batista in some ways. Obviously not the same character, but like
no
good comparison.
I remember Deacon Batista showing up with Reverend Devon or whatever and being like, that guy doesn't seem like he should be doing this.
No.
So
I'm with you, man. I think in time, maybe even SummerSlam, I think as his character builds a little, I'm rooting for him. I guess that's at the end of the day, I'm rooting for Braun Breaker.
Same.
I had no hope for him when they brought him up. And I'm now, and I don't like the big wrestlers. I was never one to like Cena. I was never one to like I didn't even like Batista. I didn't really watch during Batista's entire run. But I was never a fan of like the big guys. I always liked the underdogs like Sammy or the high flyers, the cruiserweights. That was always kind of where my heart lay. So it was cool. It was cool to see Sammy retain, especially in Canada, of all places. So that was good. I did think he was going to lose, but I'm calling it right now. I do think Braun is going to have a rematch at SummerSlam and take the championship.
That would make
that's
sense.
just my prediction.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
I mean,
and I go ahead, Joey.
I was just gonna say, I admittedly haven't kept up week to week with Raw lately, so I'm not sure what the story has been, or if it's just he won a tournament or something to get in. So I'm hoping that if they do a rematch at SummerSlam, there can be some more personal stakes between the two of them. I think there's few better underdogs than Sami Zayn. Like, he's just plays that role so well, and so just getting something a little bit more dramatic between the two of them, I think would accomplish both goals of like making the feud feel more real and giving Braun a little bit more of a character spin, you know?
Yeah,
Agreed.
no, that's a great point, because this match was very much like, you got that belt and I want that belt. Like that was pretty much it.
On a more personal level of this match, we should also mention Braun literally saved Sammy's life. Sammy tried to do, I think it was a moonsault off the barricade and missed, like breaking his neck. And Braun like grabbed his head at the very last second, and it was totally Sammy's fault. Everything was set into place, and Sammy was just a little off. I shouldn't say fault; it was no one's fault.
No,
Things like
accidents
that never
happen.
really are. But
Braun
did save his life.
Well, that like elevates his stock for me immensely.
Yeah.
He's smart.
Now,
Andrew always says when he hits those spears, it looks so safe and so controlled, unlike somebody else who got rid of the career of the one and only Bret Hart. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, really? Did that happen? I don't think I've ever heard Bret Hart talk about
I don't think
before.
you've ever.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, it's never been
That's
brought up. Not bitter about it.
He's like the antithesis to Goldberg. He is safe. He seems friendly. He
Okay, well, now I'm a super fan.
Yeah. When his dad was hurling transphobic slurs at another wrestler at a convention, he was asked about it, and he was like, "I'm not my dad. I have nothing to do with that."
Oh, I didn't know that either. Okay, well, now I'm a super Braun Breaker fan.
Yeah.
So
Thank
you for that information. That's cool.
I got you. How would you grade this match?
A.
I'm gonna go with Joey goes A. Love it. Again, saving people's lives. I'm gonna go with a B for Breaker. There we go.
Gotcha. I'm gonna go with an A as well, because this was just one of those like it was a burner. I thought they both made each other look really good. It's it's what you want from a title match. Like that was I again, like the first match only gets a B+ because of the after effect and how I ended up watching it. I think I got what I wanted from every match that happened this night, which is really
all you
rarely happens. Yeah. Real quick, I do
want
to
Andrew
through this next part because John Cena came out, made a big old announcement that I'm sure people will be familiar with this at this point, but he's retiring from in-ring competition, and he's doing like a retirement tour, which is really awesome.
I love this.
That's great.
Dude,
it's genius.
Especially, we live in a world where pro wrestlers are often not granted the luxury of knowing when they're going to retire, either through death or other means, or just like maybe their career just dries up. That happens all the time. We have some wrestlers that overstay their welcome. Not everyone can be Billy Gunn and be 60 years old and look like a 40-year-old and wrestle like a 30-year-old. It's hard to gauge, and like, look, he might end up overstaying his welcome as well. So this idea that Cena is going to do some greatest hits, hopefully for the whole time. Again, he wrestled like one match against Solo Sikoa last year, and then had to get surgery on both arms, I believe. So there's still a possibility that it could not go his way, but I love this. And I love how emotional he was. I love he has a moment where he's like, Toronto is always there. And he just like, you can see he's about to cry. because of how nice Toronto is to him.
Dude,
And
he just seems like such a nice guy. I was never a Cena fan, but now in retrospect, seeing how much the business has meant to him and changed his life, and all the Make-A-Wish stuff he's done, like he really does have a
650 Make-A-Wish things.
Yeah.
Now look,
I get why this is so big. Yeah.
he has still yet to condemn Vince McMahon and his actions, and even dodged a question about it at the presser. But look, here we are.
There's still time.
Him and The Rock both. Is there?
Is there?
I think he's gotten all.
I think the time was now.
The time was now. That's Joey. That's totally fair, man. The thing I think is cool about this too, guys, is this tour thing. It's not like, my last match will be like WrestleMania 41. It's like, there will be a last Elimination Chamber. There will be a last whatever. Hell in a Cell. Like everyone and their mother is going to go see John Cena for the last time doing whatever is in their city. Whether it's a house show, he might even show up to house shows. Who knows? But it will be a last of all these things, which I think is, from a business perspective, is just genius on the part of WWE.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
It's not like
also,
this is when his last match will be.
Right. And it takes the pressure off. I mean, eventually there will be like, this is his last match and it's going to be big.
Right.
But it kind of takes the pressure off. If he announced WrestleMania 41, it was it, then it's like, that's a lot of pressure to put on one match at one event, Yeah. But I also like Andrew said, that I think of Edge when he retired, big Edge head. And, he had a neck injury, and kind of his retirement was just kind of sudden and not planned. Of course, he ended up coming back, which was great. But, so often that's the way it goes. And to know that, like, this is the last year I'm doing this also sets up opportunity for storylines like people he's never faced off with before. And it's like the last chance of anyone in the locker room who wants to get a shot at Super Cena,
Right.
And that kind of stuff could be cool.
Yeah.
Or to play, like, run back some classics, whoever that might be.
I want to see him and The Miz. I want to see him and The Miz go at it again. Like, as much as I love the Randy Orton aspect, possibilities, I think The Miz deserves. I think The Miz deserves to be big a part of John Cena's retirement tour as John Cena does, because they were.
Wow.
That's a great story for Miz to come out and be like, John Cena's getting all this blah blah blah, and meanwhile I was there, and that's built in.
And Cena even said he was either like on A&E or at like the press conference afterwards that the Miz was the most underrated WWE superstar ever, which
wow.
I don't disagree with.
He's great. Yeah. I mean, his run with R-Truth has been incredible.
And if y'all want to see something awful, watch. I want to say it was maybe like WrestleMania 25 or 26, where it was Miz against Cena, and Miz goes over a barricade and just smacks the back of his head on some concrete in a way that was like, I remember at the time being like, no, that wasn't supposed to happen. You can hear it.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
In this giant arena full of people, you hear his head smack off the concrete. It's not, and then they wrestle for like 15 more minutes. It's
yeah,
nuts.
of course.
Yeah.
Yep. Superheroes.
Cena, man. Cena.
Well,
right,
speaking of someone possibly getting concussed, Andrew, let's talk about our next match: Damien Priest versus Seth Rollins for the world.
Let's just get it out there. Let's just say it right now. There was a huge botch in this match.
Yeah.
And I think you just alluded to it. Do you think he was knocked out, or do you not think he was knocked out? What do you think, Isaiah? I'm about to call you Isaiah.
I mean, I'm honored.
But there was a pin. There was a near fall towards the end of this match. I have heard some rumors about what people thought was supposed to happen at the time. Yeah. But basically, the count was stopped because the ref didn't do the final cut. Like, Damien Priest was supposed to kick out, he didn't, and then the ref was just like, well, I stopped it anyway.
I will say this: I feel so bad for Damien Priest right now. I feel like his run as champion, he's incredible. He's incredible, and I feel like people are being so harsh on the guy, like he's a transitional champion, blah blah blah. He had the botch at Clash at the Castle where he got caught in the ropes, which looked horribly painful, first of all. And now he has another botch here at Money in the Bank, which Triple H has come forward and said, yeah, it was a botch by Damien, but I don't fault him whatsoever.
No.
Crap happens.
Right.
I do think something happened to Damien where in the moment he just forgot to kick out. Whether he was concussed or had his like bell rung and just like wasn't thinking. I do believe that this was Damien's quote unquote fault. But I do not fault him for it whatsoever. I again, like this stuff happens. God forbid these guys mess something up in a 15-minute match, with all this crap going on. So yes, that was my really long-winded way of saying I do believe that he was somewhat concussed or something happened where he just forgot.
That's interesting that Triple H said that, because I just assumed that that Drew's entrance was mistimed.
That's
like that the music was supposed to hit before the 2 count, and maybe that's why Damien wasn't planning on like kicking out when he needed to, but sounds like maybe that wasn't the case. Regardless,
it could be Joey. I could be completely wrong too, or it could be a combination of everything. To be honest,
yeah. I mean, look, it's. I think it has the benefit of that happened, but then right after that, Drew came out, and you kind of other stuff's happening. We're moving on, but also like in the moment, I wish that the ref did more to cover it. Do you know what I mean? Like he could have been like, he could have made some motions like, well, I saw him lift his shoulder up. I'm sorry. I don't, just like kind of improvising a little bit instead of letting the crowd take over.
No, I agree. I think it worked. The ref made it look worse. I agree. I agree.
This ref is, unfortunately, this is not his first time doing something like this. He is famous for, I guess, what's her name that left, Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch. He was the same ref who like the shoulder was up in a WrestleMania match or something, and he did sort of a similar thing. So unfortunately, this is not the first time this ref has made a mistake like this, and I do fault him. At the end of the day, when it comes to a pinfall and a count, like that's on the ref. We've seen it go horribly wrong in AEW, where a wrestler was literally like concussed and the ref like screwed up a count and let the match keep going after that. Whereas with this, I agree, Joey. I do think this falls on that ref almost 100%. Yeah,
I mean he's okay, right? Like Damian Priest not injured.
Yeah, and Triple H also said that there were 0 serious accidents at the event,
which is insane, because if you told me, I would say there were at least 5 casualties.
Yeah, especially in the later ladder match we'll get to. But yeah, sorry, I'm getting ahead. The match itself I thought was pretty good.
Yeah,
I'll just say that off the bat.
Yep,
Seth looked great.
Seth looked great, as he always does. Damien looks great. I think that botch was also kind of like this perfect storm of just like 8 things happening at once. And now I will just get down to my issue with there was a moment. So McIntyre comes out, cashes in his Money in the Bank, makes it a triple threat, which I really liked. I like that, felt like a nice variation on it. And then Punk comes out to stop him. And there was a half second where Punk had the belt, and I was like, and he's looking at it, like they show him looking at it, and I was like, oh, wouldn't it be a nice twist if he helps Drew McIntyre win this match, so that he then gets to face McIntyre for the belt
for
at
the
SummerSlam.
Championship? Wow, that would have been awesome.
And I honestly think that part of them wanted to do that. But the thing that bugs me about this whole thing is they still do not have a confirmed match for SummerSlam. Punk is still not medically cleared to wrestle. So, or like wrestle a full-on match. So this just felt like them going, I don't know, just have him do this again, because they're not ready to wrestle each other yet.
Sounds to me like they're setting up an unsanctioned street fight. He's not medically cleared. We can't sanction anything that you're doing, but if you want to do it, in Cleveland. We can't stop
That
you.
could be cool. That would
And
be pretty
if there
cool.
happens to be cameras there, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
And
this does feel like the kind of rivalry that's so personal now, because I think they've done such a great job of Punk just trolling Drew constantly and screwing up his career and all this stuff, that it's just it's kind of moved beyond. For Drew, it's about the title. For Punk, it feels like just to spite Drew because he can, and now it's just like a personal beef, and like almost like Drew is going to need to take care of Punk before he can move forward and have a real opportunity at the title.
Sure.
So,
and it does. There is precedent for and just you were talking about this earlier. Shawn Michaels' first match back from retirement was a SummerSlam street fight against Triple H, and that was like the whole thing. It's like, we can't stop you guys from going at each other, so just do it. So I think that's fair. I think and when he made him lose, I was like, okay, par for the course. I get it. Like I do think that will, like, that story. I am going to watch that match, and it might end up being the best match of the year when it happens. The thing that annoys me, and we've talked about this on here before, 2 months ago, we saw Drew McIntyre be gifted a sword from The Rock that says, "We are so glad you're staying with us. Since you're not having a contract was such a big deal, I am going to make a Dwayne Johnson-sized deal out of you re-signing. Put it on social media. Here's your sword. Isn't this so cool?" And then they were like, "Oh, Drew McIntyre quits." And I was like, well, no, we know that's not true. We just saw. And then after this, he gets mad. He elbows Adam Pearce. Oh, now Drew McIntyre is suspended indefinitely. And I'm like, guys, come on. Like, what I like about this is that it feels so personal and real, this feud between them. When they throw in things like that, it just makes me go like, oh, come on, you had me. You don't need to put this extra mustard on there. Just like say that Pierce can't control him. Say that like he's got. I just don't know. And it feels like they just, again, are not ready for it, and because of that, they've had to go like, I don't know, just have him screw him over again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right. And then again, this all bleeds back to the first match. It's like, did we really need to risk the entire Money in the Bank cashing in thing to keep the wheels spinning on this story between Drew and Punk?
Alternatively, he could have come out to try to cash in, and then Punk came out before he was able to stop him from doing it.
That Joey, I'm glad you said that, because I honestly thought that was going to happen. I thought he was going to come try to cash in and Punk was going to stop him or something. But I also like the idea of almost making Drew win the championship so that he could then take the championship from him. That would be, I think, the ultimate, like, F you, this is over. Like, I win. Yeah. So,
but I just hope I would like Punk to not be in the title picture,
which is fair.
I don't know if that's like the case or what he wants or whatever, but
he doesn't need it.
Yeah, his presence is enough for me, and I think like getting a title involved kind of diminishes whatever else he's doing, because it becomes about that instead of the more personal stakes. Especially with someone like Punk, and that's sort of what I'm invested in with him. Whether he's, the underdog or he's the instigator, I love it either way.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm on the Punk train again, Joey. He was another one I hated, and now Andrew and the WWE have completely changed my mind. I love it.
Awesome.
We're on a limited time, guys. Let's move to the next match.
You're right.
Yeah. I'm trying to keep you on track, Andrew. I got to be your dad handler.
Oh, please don't say that. Please don't use that term ever again.
Daddy handler? You don't like that?
Well, then, real quick, what's your grade for this match? Real quick.
Okay.
Throw it out.
I'm going with a B- on this one, actually.
Joey?
A.
Yeah.
A. Well, okay. A- because of the kick out botch, but other than that,
I will also go A- because I still thought the match was very good, and I love Damien Priest, and I even at my heart of hearts, I can't deny that someone winning the Money in the Bank the night of a Money of a Bank only to fail cashing it in that same night is fun and surprising.
It is. Yeah.
It
It's
is. If
fun.
I was, yep, it's still fun.
Yep.
All right,
Agreed.
we had the women's Money in the Bank match, which
Match of the night.
Match of the night. I'm there with you, Joey.
I would agree were it not for the match afterwards, but I do think I would even argue that I would even argue they're tied.
Interesting.
I think the latter half of this event
I would have flipped them.
Yeah, that's fair.
Here's the
go
thing.
ahead, Joey. Go ahead.
I was watching this initially on Sunday night, and then I turned it off after the women's Money in the Bank because I thought it was over. And then it was only this morning that I realized, there was another match that I
only
podcast.
Only the undisputed champion in the bloodline. But Joey,
I
get
just
it,
again,
totally
so that it was. And Andrew, it was a good match, but for me, this felt like the match of the night, the main event.
Sure.
And it was great. And also, I'm a huge Tiffany Stratton fan, so
there you go. So is Ryan. Yep.
I am. However, I will say she's not the one I rooted for in the match. But we'll get.
Interesting. Ooh, who did you want to win?
Well, let's mention who's in it. We have Zoe Stark, Io Sky, Tiffany Stratton, Naomi, Lyra, Valkyria, and Chelsea Green.
And oh man, okay, just
dude.
Career matches from all 6 of them, and like it's not like Io Sky needed the help. Io Sky is like a ringer in there. I feel like she's gotten plenty to do, not in a bad way, and I don't mean that like you know what I feel like she is the Drew McIntyre of this match. Yeah, she is the person that doesn't necessarily need to be in it, but is there to still going to like put on a good match and do what she
elevates
does
everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Was that last year that she won?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. It was. Yep. And then she won the championship, I think, later on. She cashed in and won the championship. So I will say, going into the match, obviously, I'm on Tiffy time too, Joey. Like, totally. She's won my heart. I love her. But the minute, like, the match started and Chelsea Green tried to knock over the briefcase with the ladder.
Incredible.
Immediately, I'm like, that is genius. Why has no one ever tried that before? And that just... From there on out, I was like, Chelsea Green, please win this match. Please win this match.
And again, the storytelling was so phenomenal because to have, phenomenal being a relative term, they planted seeds that they then made good on. They did the basic of storytelling, but sometimes that's all you need to do in wrestling. But to start that off, talking about her fear of heights and to have her do the spot that she did at the end of the match was perfect. It was perfect.
Yep.
Yeah.
The writing on that is just like, you can't ask for better writing than like following up on something and bringing it back. And I thought that was genius to be like, yeah, she's the one who's afraid of heights. Then to have her have the most dangerous high spot in the entire match is just, I loved it. But yeah, I'm getting ahead of it.
No, that's all right, man.
Yeah, this match had so many incredible spots. Some of them
Zoe Stark's getting Michinoku drivered onto a ladder.
That was one of the moments where I was like, she's dead.
She's dead.
That just, there's no way to really, I mean, I assume that Io is the one protecting her in that in that moment, but like that just
maybe
I can't.
It also goes like my favorite selling of a move, which is to like Looney Tunes-esque, like just kind of pop up, dude, slowly fall over.
Yeah.
It's always great for something that is so like violent and like macho and all this stuff. It's always such a silly thing that everyone does, and it always makes me smile a little bit.
Yeah. There was one too,
like
doink.
Yeah.
There was another one where
birds flying around their heads.
Yeah. Io Sky. It was Io Sky or Valkyria. Like fell flat onto the ladder from like really high up, and it left like Valkyria on the ground. And Io Sky, she looked so contorted after it, like her arms and legs were like behind her, and it looked. I'm just gonna say, she looked like an amputee. Like she had no arms and legs. That's how like brutal the bump looked after that. So again, like I think Chelsea Green and Io Sky were actually kind of the unsung heroes of the match, in many ways. But Zoe Stark also took such a beating in this match. I never thought she was going to win, but I think she deserves a lot of praise in this one too. They all do.
Yeah.
I feel
I
like
agree.
Zoe Stark is often put into the position of taking like the most brutal punishment in any matches that she's in.
Yeah.
And that feels like, I don't know that she's totally, I don't know if the crowd is like totally invested in her as a character, but I think the reason that she keeps ending up in these big matches is because she can take the hits like that. You can pile driven from the top of a ladder onto another ladder and still be alive. You know?
And sell it really well. It's a very like she reminds me. Her selling reminds me a lot of Triple H, which would probably explain why they're so sweet on her. Like because she's got a great look. She's a great wrestler. I always feel like she looks like she can just beat up anybody on the roster, which is always a plus. I thought she was great in this match. It's hard to top Chelsea Green because it was another. It just also. To what you were saying earlier, like just so in line with her character and who she is, which just made it even better. Like, she's got such control over her character right now that it's just exciting to watch.
And she's a great performer in a way that, like, that's not. I don't think that's a spot you would expect traditionally from Chelsea Green, like that kind of character. You know, doing such like high risk kind of bump like that, and it just made it all the more impactful.
Yeah. My concern when Tiffany Stratton came around is I found her so similar to Chelsea Green. I still kind of do, to be honest, character wise, that I thought it was really cool that they were kind of the two final ones in this match. And we should mention too, Chelsea Green is the one who set up the tables that she would eventually crash through. So
pretty great.
The match kind of ends with Tiffy like kind of being like Toodles. She pushes the ladder over that Chelsea's on. Chelsea
and they set it up together, didn't they? Didn't they help each other set them up? Yeah,
they did. Yeah.
Yep.
And you could tell they were being extra careful because Chelsea knew she was the one that was going to be going through them. Spoiler alert, guys, wrestling is predetermined sometimes. And Chelsea just crashes through and Tiffany wins the match, which I was not expecting. I'm happy for her. I can't wait to see what happens because I am still on Tiffy time. So
I also love that we get that still photo of Chelsea falling off the ladder that looks like the poster to Skyscraper if it was realistic. Like instead of the Rock, like, oh, I'm going, it would be like no, straight down. What do you grade this match, Joey? You first.
A+.
Nice.
A+. Match of the night for me
as well. A+ from me as well.
Yep.
It'll be one of two A+ as we get into our final match. Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, Randy Orton. Yeah, that's what I'm about to say. Against the new Bloodline.
Did you forget the Viper? How dare you?
So. I know. Terrible.
You're the biggest Randy Orton fan that I know.
I know. Yeah, because he's great. I loved this match. I think that it was one of the best debut matches I've ever seen in watching wrestling for Jacob Fatu. What kind of happened, which is what I thought might happen, is that he overshadowed Solo Sikoa. But it worked for me. And this was one of those things where I am more invested in this storyline now than I expected myself to be. Because yes, I think they are setting themselves up as this kind of like faux bloodline, this new bloodline. And you can kind of see the cracks in a good way. You can see that Solo's not doing all the work himself. You can see that like there's kind of this uncontrollable element to them as opposed to the other one where like Roman Reigns had them in like lockstep the whole time. And having them beat them like this was this like kind of have their cake and eat it too. They can set up Solo as a potential challenger for Cody Rhodes without having him beat him, one-on-one in any kind of regular. And then they can still be like, oh, he pinned the champion. Solo Sikoa is never putting that belt on ever. But I still am excited by how they are setting it up. And this is the kind of every match, I would argue, like so there were some resets here, but so much of what happened today is propelling things forward. And I think that this match did that a lot. It
Mm.
propelled a storyline that I think could get stagnant really quick, and kind of injected some new life into it. Will that stay? I don't know. But I thought it was just as important to have this happen as what I love is that like you have the women's Money in the Bank match, which ended up being tied for first for me because it is something that could have easily just been okay or just like good and who cares. But instead you get this showcase for these incredible 6 wrestlers, and you get it's kind of like separate from everything else. They can all go their own way. And then we still have this other huge match that pushes the main narrative forward. It gives us that kind of ongoing story, and it does something interesting with it. We've been watching these 6 guys. Well, you know what I mean, for the most part, wrestle each other for the past couple of months. And this made it feel special again for me.
I love that. That's such a good point. We should mention two things about Jacob Fatu. Michael Cole said at the top, we had to literally pull strings to get this guy into the country because of how dangerous he is, which I think actually means his criminal record in real life. That's what I was assuming. So I thought that was a really nice touch. And then the second one was when Randy Orton gave Jacob Fatu that DDT. And then Jacob Fatu no-sold it and got right back up. Again, almost like a Looney Tunes cartoon. He did it. Boom, just gets up.
There's a great picture, too, because Orton stands up and, sticks his tongue out, and then Fatu is just behind him doing the exact same thing.
The crazy eyes, yep.
Yep. And what I love, too, so much of the heavy lifting from the announcers about Jacob Fatu was basically them going, we know this guy's amazing. We just didn't sign him because we screwed up. So we're going to say that he's been too dangerous to be here.
Yeah.
I love that.
And in something they never would have done during the Vince McMahon regime, the announcers were like, go to YouTube and watch Jacob Fatu in these other promotions and look at what he's done. They would never have done that with Vince McMahon. Saying, go watch him in whatever, New Japan. Go watch him over here. The announcers during the match were literally like, if you guys don't know about this guy, you should go watch him on YouTube right now. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Kind of an aside, but just in general of this current era that we're in, I love that it feels like they're in the wrestling world again, and they're not.
Yes.
We're wrestling trying to be something else. It's
right.
no, we're we're the cream of the crop of wrestling. And so we're acknowledging all this stuff exists, but we're the ones that make or break people essentially. And I love that. It makes it feel more like a sporting event. It makes it feel like we're watching something with real stakes in terms of the sports careers of these people and not just the stories, which is a fun extra element for me.
I agree.
But this was a great match. It's definitely one of their, I find often the Bloodline matches in general are always the most cinematic, choreographed isn't the right word, but that moment, Fatu standing up behind Orton, they're like, okay, we're gonna get this great shot, and they have those sort of beats planned, and that's always fun. But I just don't. I'm not invested in the new Bloodline.
Sure.
Until Roman comes back and is like, "What are you doing?" Then I'm having a hard time really buying into them in the same way that I bought into the peak Bloodline era, which I've told my wife on multiple occasions is as good as anything the Sopranos ever did. Wow. That initial Bloodline that concluded at Mania is prestige TV for me.
Yeah,
I think it's incredible.
I think again, we'll see what happens. I understand, Joey, and I'm with you. I told Andrew, I'm not feeling any of these guys. But I will say, since Paul Heyman left, and since these guys are so chaotic, I'm interested to see, what's going to happen, who's going to control these guys eventually. I think it could make again for another the Bloodline 2.0 at its finest. We'll see. Yeah, again,
I also wonder how much they're going to play into. Yeah, sorry. I wonder how much they're going to play into the history because Cody Rhodes and Tangaloa and Tamatanga were in the Bullet Club at the same time in New Japan.
Oh,
Wrestling.
right. I tend to forget
So
that.
they've like worked together before, which is really awesome. Gentlemen, we are going to have one more show first here. I'm going to say this is another A+ for me, and then I have to go. But you two can close out the show together.
Oh, hell
I love
yeah,
you both
Joey.
so much. I try to do it up. Sanford Minus Son on Twitter. Watch Pay the Tithe on Vimeo. And then I got to go wake up my children.
We love you. What's your overall grading of Money in the Bank, Andrew?
A. Solid A.
A.
Just A.
Love it.
Just an A.
Love
Yep. I thought it was
All right,
great. I had
buddy.
a blast watching it. So
you
Gents,
go wake
Joey,
up the
thank
Usos.
you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Wake up the Usos right now. Absolutely. All right, y'all. Peace.
All right,
Hey, man.
later, my man.
Okay, now we
Joey,
can
and then
start
there were two. Now,
talking,
right?
talking trash.
Yeah, what an idiot. He has no idea what he's talking about. Joey, what would you give this match, man? I'm going to assume, but
I would give this an A.
okay, that's
solid
fair.
A.
And I am with you, man. I do agree. I think they should have switched. I think the women's Money in the Bank should have been the main event. But yeah, I think in time, both you and I are going to look back at this and be like, the Bloodline 2.0 is the Sopranos 2.0.
Yeah.
For sure, man. So what would you give Money in the Bank overall?
Overall, I think this is a solid A show.
Yeah.
I think it did everything it needed to do. It delivered on the premise of the Money in the Bank pay-per-view and did it in a way that felt fun with the Drew stuff and cashing in and getting screwed. Like it's kind of like classic wrestling BS that I really enjoyed, but also gave a spotlight to, Tiffany Stratton won, but that whole group just really shined, but giving her this path forward to really elevate her stock in the company, I think is really exciting. And then the title match was great. And this tag event was great. And it's really, set the stage for SummerSlam, I think. And I am very, very, very excited to see where everything's headed.
Right. Which at the end of the day, you're right. That's what this is about. It's setting the stage for SummerSlam, which they're really trying to push as a new like summer WrestleMania, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think if any PLE can move stories forward, that's all we can truly ask for. And this one did it. If you don't mind, Joey, a few of our Facebook group members wanted to give their thoughts. Would you mind sticking around for these?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool, man. Awesome. So we're going to go with Nathaniel on Facebook. He says, Money in the Bank was okay. I liked a majority of the matches, but some of the finishes were not good. NXT's Heat Wave was the better PLE of the weekend. Ooh, that's interesting.
Hot take.
That's a hot take.
I haven't watched Heat Wave yet, but I did see that Ethan Page is around and now is NXT champ, which I'm excited about. I love All Ego Ethan Page, but sorry you didn't enjoy it as much as we did Nathaniel, but at least you watched and had a good time.
Absolutely. David on Facebook says, despite mixed reviews, I really enjoyed Money in the Bank. The two Money in the Bank matches had many holy moments, and the main event was interesting. The Damien Priest Seth Rollins match was a bit of a disappointment as Priest seemed way off. The best part of the match was actually between CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. So yeah, it seems like David was all about story with this one, which again, that's half of the reason we watch wrestling.
So both of those comments suggest that Money in the Bank was just okay. Is that like what's the I don't really read internet stuff about wrestling because it's just kind of could go either way. But what's been the general response in your experience being more tuned in?
From what I'm gathering, it was okay.
Interesting.
And I know that's a passive way of putting it, but I that's what I'm kind of getting across the board is this was okay. I think a lot of the botch fest, as they're sort of calling it, really soured a lot of people's opinions of it, which I think it shouldn't. I think like this stuff happens. It's live. It's going to happen. So like you, I think we have to give these guys a little wiggle room to be like, everything can't be perfect. It's Money in the Bank. It's not WrestleMania.
Right. but also when stuff like that happens, I think it's a great reminder of these performers are human beings who are like pushing themselves to a physical limit that 90% of people could never even strive to, let alone achieve. And it's just, the same thing happens when you see mistakes, like you see a boom mic in a movie or something. It's like, oh yeah,
Right.
human beings are putting this stuff together. And it's kind of awesome that we can see the cracks in the facade a little bit. And I would say, as far as botches go, someone not kicking out on time, certainly not like the worst thing we've ever seen in wrestling. So
Right.
hopefully people can move past that. And certainly in any recaps or video packages that we see of this event, it's only going to be the highlights. I think our long-term memory is going to remember this as something different than maybe it actually was. But I don't know, just be like, oh, that was weird, but holy crap, look at the rest of this match, you know?
Exactly, man. And at the end of the day, like no one's gonna be harder on Damian Priest than Damian Priest. So like
Yeah.
he will move on from this. He already has. Raw the next night, as I'll mention in just a moment, was fantastic. And our last Facebook member here says, I'm all for the briefcase being used as a one night story. Too often it's one kept for ages, then the obligatory cash in. Why wouldn't Drew try the same night? It worked out really well. So that's cool. I'm glad
Yeah,
someone liked that
totally
entire
agree.
aspect of it. So yeah. The only thing I'll mention, Joey, moving forward from Money in the Bank is Monday Night Raw last night as we're recording this. The big thing is Rhea Ripley made her return. I don't know. Are you following the storylines over on Raw at all?
Yes, but I haven't watched this week yet.
Okay.
I only saw that Rhea returned because she posted about it on her Instagram, which is a whole new element of wrestling that is so interesting because
I
she's like
hate it.
she's posting about her real life marriage to Buddy Matthew and her pets and stuff, but then also like showing up to confront Dirty Dom. And it's just
It's
like,
weird, man. I
it's,
hate it. I hate it, hate it, hate it.
I don't know. It's like, I like that they're acknowledging that they're playing a character, but I also wish that she just had like a personal account and then like the character account or
Right.
something. And that goes for not just her, like everybody on Twitter or Instagram or whatever. So I
Yeah.
totally get what you mean. I'm glad that she's back. What happened? Did she just confront
So
about the
basically,
live stuff?
yeah, she came out and she kind of gave Dom one of these, what are you doing sort of mommy sort of things. And then it just cut to black. So we're gonna have to wait till next week to
Oh,
figure
it
out
was
what
like the end of the show.
happens. It was literally like the last 30 seconds she made her entrance, which I was like,
Oh,
oh,
okay.
come on. Like for such a big return, we're gonna
It's
get
probably
30
a huge
seconds.
pop.
Yeah, it was huge, man. The place went nuts. I think they were in Ottawa. So yeah, that was the big thing that happened on Raw. But that's it, man. That's Money in the Bank. Again, I want to thank you for coming on such last minute, Joey,
Yeah,
with
thanks
us
for having me.
to review
Anytime.
this, man. But before we go, once again, please tell us about everything you got going on. Obviously, the pedestrian being the one out front right now. But yeah, let us know where we can find everything you're up to, man, and where people can find the pedestrian.
I'm on the internet at Joey Esposito on Twitter and Instagram. You can go to joeyesposito.com and find more info about my work. But yeah, The Pedestrian is a new creator-owned comic that I have coming out with my collaborator, Sean Von Gorman, who was on the show last week talking about WrestleMania 7. And that comes out August 7th. You can go to your local comic book shop and ask them for it, and hopefully they have a copy to give you. And then at the end of August, I also have Sesame Street #1 coming out for any parents out there who want to get their small children into comics.
Whoa.
You can read have a fun Grover adventure coming out also at the end of August. So yeah, I hope you'll check them out.
That's dude, you threw me for a curve right there. I was not expecting you to say Sesame Street #1.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Ugh, I love it. I love the diversity of everything you're doing too. It's amazing.
Thanks.
Joey, man, we are gonna have to have you back again. We
Please.
highly enjoy having you on the show. But once again, I am going to ask you if you could ring that bell and get us somewhere out of the ring for tonight.
Ding, ding, ding.
Perfection.
Boom.
This has been Somewhere in the Ring. Thank you for listening. Subscribe wherever you get your pods, and be sure to rate and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever possible. We'll see you again soon, somewhere in the ring.
This has been a production of LIONSGATE Sound. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever possible. Thank you for listening.